At the request of the veterans and families touched by Exercise Tiger, we joined together to commemorate the start of the 70th anniversary of the practice landings here at Slapton Sands. I now introduce Joe Evans, local historian and teacher, who will remind us of the events here in 1943 and 1944.
It is 1943 and the tide of war has turned in favour of the Allies. At the Tehran Conference, Roosevelt, Churchill and Stalin had agreed to launch an invasion of Europe in 1944. Eisenhower was concerned that the thousands of young Americans drafted into the army lacked experience and directed that men must be hardened by exposure to real battle conditions. In November, the US Fifth Corps Planning Directive stated the intention to conduct exercises in the Slapton Sands area to train units and staff in embarkation, landing on hostile shores, seizing and holding a beachhead. American troops began arriving in Britain just before Christmas. In order to maintain security, it would be necessary to clear the area of civilians. A simple statement that belies the incredible organisation that this would entail in a very short timescale. In early November, Devon County Council was informed that 30,000 acres in the South Hams would be requisitioned. The area comprised 8 villages, a total of 3,000 civilians. Residents were informed that every person would leave the area by the 20th of December. There are many personal stories of tragedy and turmoil surrounding this mass evacuation, but the common thread is the phrase, "without explanation or argument." 3,000 people were prepared to leave their homes in the unshakable belief that it was for the greater good and to help the war effort. In December, the South Hams was officially American. Training exercises were designed to stimulate battle conditions and test cooperation between the American Army and British Navy. Exercise Tiger concerned only U-Force, the units that were to assault Utah Beach. The exercise was scheduled for the 27th and 28th of April. The first wave would land at H-hour 07:30 on the 27th of April. The British Navy would shepherd several slow-moving convoys from various ports. Bombers would target the beach with fire and mortars from the sea, the real battle conditions that Eisenhower has specified. Amongst the first convoy were LSTs, landing ship tanks, flat-bottomed 4,500-ton assault ships capable of carrying several hundred men, lorries and tanks. They were having difficulty keeping up with the convoy, and it was decided to delay H-hour until 08:30. Inevitably, some ships and vessels failed to receive this signal. As the first wave hit the beach, they came under fire from ships bombarding the beach for the revised H-hour. Subsequent deaths by friendly fire is estimated at about 200. Statistics initially added to casualty figures for the 6th of June at Utah Beach. In the second assault, 8 LSTs joined the convoy from Brixham and Plymouth. Convoy escorts were the British ships HMS Azalea and HMS Scimitar. The latter suffered damage as a result of a collision with an LST and returned to Plymouth. The LSTs were not on the same radio frequency as HMS Azalea or Plymouth Command. As a result of a typing error in the orders given to them, they were unaware that HMS Scimitar had left the convoy or that German E-boats had been reported in the area. At 01:35 hours on the morning of the 28th of April, the attack began. LST 507 and 531 were torpedoed and sank. LST 289 was torpedoed but able to make Dartmouth for repairs. After the convoy scattered, against orders, LST 515 returned to the area to search for survivors. 749 young Americans lost their lives that night. The death toll makes Exercise Tiger the costliest battle for US forces at that point in the war after Pearl Harbor. By the evening of the 28th of April, the surviving LSTs, having offloaded casualties, sailed for Slapton Sands to continue the exercise. When the bodies of all the US personnel who had access to top secret details of actual invasion plans had been recovered, then Allied command were confident that security had not been breached. For the sake of morale and the Allied invasion of Europe, details of Exercise Tiger were buried. Survivors were sent to other battalions and encouraged not to share their memories. Some 6 weeks later, D-Day and the invasion of Europe overshadowed all other news. In the 1970s, Ken Small, a Torcross resident, learned of the existence of a Sherman tank on the seabed off the coast. Having successfully located it, he conceived of the idea of buying it, salvaging it, and setting up a permanent memorial to those who'd lost their lives, and also for the survivors of the exercise and their families. Having accomplished this incredible feat, he went on to research and document the survivors' stories and produce the first Roll of Honour of those US Army and Navy personnel killed or missing. He was able to right a wrong which had first been committed to protect morale and the D-Day invasion plans, and then had been buried in the mists of time. Ken Small described his work as an obsession, a crusade. But this crusade gave answers and closure for survivors and their families, and the families of those who perished. In the concluding chapter of his book, The Forgotten Dead, he writes, "Many men lost their lives in World War II, but these men lost their lives off the coast of England before the invasion of Europe had even started. I care about them now, and I will go on caring about them in the future." Perhaps those words sum up why we are here today. We care and we remember. If we cease to do either, we will be denying our own humanity.
And so indeed we do remember. We remember those who died in Exercise Tiger, that we may live in freedom. And we remember Christ, who died that we may live forever. Amen.
In memory of almost 1,000 brave young American servicemen who died off our coast 70 years ago, to the freedom we enjoy today, I ask you to observe a 1-minute silence. Thank you.
This tribute is read on behalf of the Chief of the Defence Staff of the United Kingdom. How bravely they came, these men from overseas, not timid, but eager to defend a foreign shore. So young and full of life, with plans for the years ahead, when the battle was won. But, with a terrible surprise, their lives were taken in the darkness, and for them, there was to be no dawn. The cruel sea snatched their hopes and dreams, and they were left resting forever in another land. America, we thank you for sacrificing your youth to protect our freedom. Although the years pass by, we will not forget these gallant men who helped gain our shared victory.